Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we got a little different video. We have an interview with Thad Cox, who is a advertising creative director with 20 years of experience working for Leo Burnett and Saatchi and doing work for McDonald's and Kellogg's and Nintendo and a ton of other great clients and brands. And today we're digging into AI and the ethics of it all and where does it fit into a creative workflow and where it's all heading. Some speculation, some conversation between me and Thad, lots of insights in here that can help you maybe perceive AI tools a little differently and prep for the future world that you're all headed to as a creative person inside a changing world that's filled with AI tools. All right, let's dig into the interview conversation with me and Thad. We'll see you in there. The hottest topic is the ethical side of AI and generative AI. I posted a video. I used an AI image in my newsletter and I posted it.
Oh, I think I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I posted it saying, hey, I used dall-e. I put in this prompt and this is why I used it. And I'm playing around with AI and trying to figure out how do I incorporate this into my workflow. And Adobe went all in on AI and it's not going away. And so every designer should be trying to figure out how it fits into their workflow. Anyway, I had somebody reply on my newsletter saying, well, I guess I'm going to unsubscribe if you keep stealing art. That's what they said to me. And I was like, okay, well, sorry to see you go. It was hard to take the brunt of somebody's anger about AI because I used an AI image. Me personally, I didn't go and steal somebody's art from their portfolio and throw it into my thing. AI used the prompt and its learning model and generated that thing. But there's a hot topic out there of people who are so angry about the way that these AI models go and scrape existing imagery and compile something that is new. What are your thoughts on the ethical side of AI inside of the design industry?
Well, it's funny you mentioned this, and I haven't mentioned it in our chats, but the other day I was contacted by an image licensing company asking me for money because I've been using an image that wasn't I hadn't paid for. And this was a real interesting thing. So a couple of years ago, I did you've heard of JJ Watt, the NFL player?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I rebranded JJ's foundation and I said, look, I'm not going to charge for this because it's a charity thing.
Yeah.
And I stupidly must have taken an image off Google Image just for my portfolio, just to have of JJ looking cool. And there were loads of images that they took. And they were like saying, well, you owe us £1,000 now. And I'm like going, well, I know, I'm really sorry. But I used it like on one place. I totally forgot. I didn't charge for this job.
Yeah.
So can you not under so I lost money, I suppose, doing it as a charity gesture. And I said, look, would you be at all lenient? I doubt they will. But it was a really interesting thing of they probably used AI to find the image to come after me. And yet AI is now under dispute because it's being fed in. So for me, it would have been better to go, give me a JJ Watt image in AI.
Yeah.
I'll have that for nothing. Yeah, if I use someone's photo, stupidly. It's a real interesting thing. So I just thought I'd mention it. But yes.
To talk about how things like Midjourney, you and I shared an article about Midjourney and some of the artists that it was crawling and learning from, had a list of artists like Banksy and Andy Warhol and things in it that it had used in the learning model. And it was leaked names of some of the artists that were getting scraped and learned from to generate AI imagery. Where do you think this goes? What is the proper level of anger from illustrators and photographers and things in the world that are the most impacted by this, or potentially the most impacted revenue-wise by AI going and allegedly stealing their work? What's the response? Because it feels to me like it's this tidal wave cresting and there's no stopping it. So save a mass boycott of all AI tools and generative AI tools, ChatGPT, dall-e, Midjourney, go down the list, and all of the Adobe products. Save a mass boycott from the entire creative industry of those things. I don't see a way to stop this cresting wave. So what's your advice to the illustrators and photographers and videographers and things that are so angry about AI creeping into the workflow of everyday people?
I think it's terrifying, and I would imagine, well, as a creative person, that what's mortifying is something that's taken you a long time to learn. You with your skill set through adversity is just being copied and ripped off, and that is heartbreaking, and it's unscrupulous, and the people doing it don't seem to care because they would like, well, I'm going to get away with it, and you can't stop me, and it's not going anywhere. It's out of the bottle. So I think part of me I have a dual personality. So part of me will say to you, you need to become better because there's going to be endless challenges. So it's not about getting fixated about what can we do to fight back. It's about, well, I can't change it, so I have to adapt. And I kind of feel that it's like the dad in The Croods who wants to go back to the cave and rail against like the world is ending. It's like it doesn't do you any good, unfortunately, because this is what's going to happen. So what I would liken it to from a creative person is people get very possessive of ideas and they're always terrified of others. People are going to steal my ideas. And again, when I've been asked that, particularly working in advertising, it's like, well, if you're the one coming up with the work, I wouldn't worry about the people who are relying on copying you. The fact that you can be innovative enough to come up with stuff is a real plus. They're relying on you generating something before they can copy it, and that is your advantage. And I don't believe that the microwave meal put restaurants out of business. It just means it appeals to a different type of customer. And you have to think about actually what is the advantage I have over AI, which is usually most things generated instantly have very little value to humans. And actually, I think there is an element of me, certainly, where if I know an article has been written by AI, I'm less engaged by that. And I actually want to go to someone who I know is a human to get their opinion. And with an artist or a creator, you have to go, well, how can I add extra value back into my work by maybe documenting my process? Why should people want to pick me over an instant robot? And maybe just accepting, look, it's just horses for courses. Some people will want the AI stuff and they were probably never my audience anyway. But actually, this is an opportunity to go the other way and go, well, what is it that humans crave over mass produced products? And this is true of any industry and any product. McDonald's versus a gourmet burger, it's the same item but produced differently for different markets. So mass production of stuff has always been what humans do. I think it's this thing of, okay, how can you get better? How can you not let this affect your confidence and kind of go, what is the values that my audience appreciate that make them want to come to me for a specific thing? So I would kind of try and control it, if you know what I mean, because it's impossible it will overwhelm you if you start to get fixated. It becomes your white whale in Moby Dick. It's like
Yeah.
it will just take you down and kill you if you get too fixated. So I would try and go. I mean, putting it back to yourself, Mike. I mean, it's like if you were picking imagery for content and you were commissioning a photographer or an artist versus using an AI prompter, what are the variables that change your opinion where you would say I'd rather go to an artist versus Midjourney, or actually
Yeah.
no, Midjourney's fine for this?
Yeah. It's the end value of the work. When somebody bashed on me in my newsletter one time, this was I've used 2 AI images over the last like 6 months in my newsletter. Both of them I called out and said, hey, this is an AI image. I'm playing around with the tools. And everybody should be, because Adobe Max just came out and Adobe stuck
Yeah.
generative AI in every freaking tool they have. So I started playing with it the same way everybody did last year. In fact, we saw that article that said 88% of designers have incorporated AI into their workflow in some fashion. 88%. I mean, that's
Yeah.
might as well be everybody. So playing with it, but I had somebody call me out on that, and it made me sit back and think, okay, well, they said I was taking work away from other illustrators. I could have had somebody illustrate that. And a lot of people would have done it for free. This was their rebuttal. And my first response was, okay, first of all, this is my newsletter that I don't generate. It's not a paid newsletter. I don't have revenue against my newsletter. I write an article and send it out to my newsletter audience. And most of the time the article is, here's a script you can use to help you land a client. Here's what you do when a client wants more changes and you don't have it in scope. Here's how you handle it. It's value content that I'm giving away for free to my audience. I don't charge them for my articles. So I have no revenue against the newsletter for me to mentally say, okay, what's my budget per newsletter for purchasing custom illustration to highlight the thing? And there is no revenue against it. And so I can't, from a business standpoint, justify buying or paying a custom illustrator to illustrate some image for each newsletter that I send out. So I never would. So that leaves me with stock or AI. Those are the two things. Or I make myself a little infographic of some kind or something. So I think that from that standpoint, what is the revenue against what you're doing? Now, at my agency, when I was running my agency, I can't imagine that I ever would have used AI imagery in any paid work. Now, I sold my agency in 2015 and I left there in 2018. It was all pre-generative AI. I wouldn't have used AI generated imagery for client paid work. I would have, and we did. I sold illustration and custom photography and custom infographics that were created by humans. We did those kinds of projects all the time and built our own assets for clients. I wouldn't have used it for paid work. And that would have been a line that I would have drawn in the sand as well. You don't want that. Now, we're in a world now where agencies have been using AI imagery. You found several articles relating to that. How do they get over the emotional or the ethical justification that that's okay to do?
I, I have with my background in hospitality, I find that the people complaining, often the problem is more with them. So I'd imagine the person who is complaining is really, they just probably feel hard done by, or they're struggling for clients and they're just lashing out. So for me, it's a misdirected anger at you is what I feel this is.
Yeah.
But I totally agree that if you were running your agency, it's keeping up with the competition, and I wonder that it'd be impossible not to. And I think it's only becoming more. It's the future. It's what people do. I'm always interested to know that at what point is this a novelty where it's like I can produce something super fast, and that's quite great because it would have taken me a long time. But also I'm looking at the expense of what. So when you look at producing photography or like, you've seen people making ads where it's like you can just drop your image in and we'll do the rest of it. Part of me, it's short-sighted because, as you'll know, when you're doing a shoot, there's so much that goes on the shoot that will develop you as a person and as a creative director, because the shoot is the outcome. It's all the admin and the people skills and the expertise and the negotiation and leadership, which makes you a better creative director, and not outsourcing it to a machine. So I guess I'm going a bit off topic here, but I think it's impossible to ignore because other people are going to be doing it. But I think there's a sort of a hidden expense that we're not able to see yet in the rush to just be doing it and polluting the internet. So I feel, like I said, I feel sorry for the person that it's upset them that you might be using it, but you were really open. I thought you were overly open at going, it's almost like I'm trying this as well.
Yeah.
It's like, well, at least you're honest enough to say it. And so like, if, okay, I'll just get a stock image, it doesn't solve the problem for that person. And it's what I came back to. It's kind of, people view craftsmanship really massively. If you look at, I found a guy on Instagram who he makes portraits out of wood, and he doesn't stain the ink different colors. He just finds different types of wood, and he gets commissions from NBA players to do like realistic shirts and portraits, and they're phenomenal. And he'll charge a lot of money because there is craft in that. You can't reproduce that, or if you can, but no value in it. It's like, I guess it's like art prints and the original art piece, isn't it? It's a similar thing. So, but I feel that agencies are going to use it because they're looking at the bottom line and they're looking to save money, and that's understandable. But I've said to you, like I've heard from within my old industry of advertising, people pitching and using Midjourney for the creative, and actually being successful doing winning the pitch. And in the one I talk about, it was against a very big company, and it was basically a one massive established company versus two switched on creative directors and a very good prompter, and they won the pitch against this established agency. And effectively, it was just three of them, and that is impressive but depressing a little bit, I think.
Yeah, so that's the scary thing is that right now you can say, okay, but human created design or art has the process behind it and it has the humanity behind it. And so therefore it is better. That's kind of the mindset. But what happens when AI is actually producing better results than humans? What
Well,
happens? What happens then? How do designers survive a world like that?
well, I guess you've got. I think you've got to reframe it. I think it's the thing of you've got this fantastic tool. It's probably like when, I mean, I remember when Quark and Photoshop were
Yeah,
first getting really good,
yeah.
and you're like, oh, this is just enhancing my capability. But the thing that I still there is my brain, my cognitive power. So if you see it as a tool of like it's all getting better for everyone, where is the opportunity? And I believe, because I was thinking about this today, and for me, this reminds me of being in sport, as in you are a player. So like if you were in sport, Mike, what team do you support?
The Chicago Bears, NFL.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were playing for the Bears,
Mm,
you would be aware of a similar thing of like technology is advancing. There are these young guys coming through who are just phenomenally good.
yeah.
There is the window on my career is closing. So what do ex players for the Bears do after they retire?
A lot of them be sports commentators. A lot of the
Yeah.
retired players. Yeah. They stay involved in the industry that they know so well.
So they could probably go into coaching of
A
some
lot of
capacity,
them
or
into coaching. Yeah.
they leverage their leadership and business skills to go on the tour circuit, I'd imagine, and get a lot of money
Mm,
that way, or they
yeah.
open businesses. And I know a lot of them do have money troubles, of course, but
Yeah.
I feel it's a similar thing with AI, which is AI is only going to get faster and better. There are kids out there who don't have commitments, in personal lives, families, work, all that stuff, who've got all the time in the world to get better than you. So I believe it's a bit like the player. You have to evolve. And I think that from my point of view with coaching, as a not a very good football player, the next step is to become quite a good coach.
Mm,
And the best coaches are get very good at two things. One, they can spot talent, and two, they recognize success. And I remember this really early on. Jose Mourinho talked about the difference between great coaches and good ones are the great ones know what success looks like. So when they see it, even if they're far away, they recognize it. Where the good ones can be right next to it and they won't even recognize it. That's why it doesn't come to them. So I think the opportunity here is to go, this isn't a phenomenal tool. If I'm going to stay ahead of the game, I've got to think more like a coach, and I've got to go into talent spotting and looking like who are the young people who I can form partnerships with and use. So like as a creative director, you would go, well, I'm not like I know I'm not a very good designer. So the way I look good is to hire people better than me. So my job as a creative director is to go, that's a really good illustrator. Let's bring them in, or that's a brilliant director or photographer. And what you realize if you do it properly, they make the job even better because they bring their expertise to it in a way that you never can. So actually loosening your grip on control makes you better because you're able to bring in the talent who will do a phenomenal job for you. So I think it evolves as in you can still use it as a tool and be brilliant with it and be curious. But I would say objectively, if you're spending 5 hours a day learning Midjourney, I would argue if I spend 5 hours a day talent spotting Midjourney prompters, after a year, I'll have better work than you because I'm going to use the prompters. And that's my advantage. Like a really good coach, I know where the next pool of talent is coming from.
mm.
So that's how my mind thinks of this as go. I can't keep up.
That's
So I'd be
interesting.
foolish to try, if you know what I mean. So that's
Yeah.
how I think about it. So a player that thinks about what am I going to do next in my career will often do better because they'll have
Yeah.
media training, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay, so here's my take on that kind of angle of what do designers do? What do you do to stay healthy? And I've been trying to formulate how to word this over the last 3 or 4 weeks. But I think my position on this is that if you think your job is designing logos and that's the thing you're delivering, then AI is your enemy. You're afraid because
Yeah,
AI can produce logos and it can produce more ideas faster than you can, and sometimes better than you can. So AI is your enemy if your job is designing logos. If you pivot your perception and realize that your job is creating a brand and getting that brand in front of the right audience, that's your job. Now all of a sudden AI can be a tool that you use. It's your friend because it can help you generate more ideas, it can help you do audience research, it can give you marketing ideas, brand perception ideas. It can spark things to you, and it can give you creative visuals that at a push of a button, now all of a sudden your job as a brand creator who also markets and gets that brand in front of the right people becomes easier and better. You can do it better than you could just before. So I think that there's a shift that has to happen in a lot of creatives, and some of them hate this idea because they love making the logo so much. But if you love making the logo, then you're competing. You're going to compete with AI until AI takes over your ability. And then a hand done logo becomes a piece of art that you selectively choose. Like some of these
yeah,
amazing logo designers, they'll do that because they want a Banksy art piece of art. They want the art. But if for a lot of these businesses that are a plumber or something, they're never going to pay for the
no,
Banksy level logo design. They're going to want the fast, get it down and dirty, and just tell me how this logo is going to get in front of the right people and generate revenue for my business. And if that is how you position your mindset, I think that you can view AI as a friend and not an enemy. And I think a lot of the people who view it as an enemy and are so angry about it are the ones who are hanging on to the artistic side of
yeah,
the design industry and not realizing the marketing side of the design industry. Now, let me just, you said this at the start, but I have two sides to my brain on this too. I have the ethical side that I'm just as frustrated as everybody who bashes on my posts anytime I say anything about AI. I get it. I get why they're mad. I'm not a proponent of AI and stealing design jobs and stealing creative ideas and stealing design and illustration work from humans. I'm not a fan of that. Good grief. Now, if you read the comments on some of my AI posts, you would think that I was the proponent of that, and that's not the case. What I am a proponent of is reality. And reality is that Adobe is sticking AI, generative AI, into every single one of their tools. You can
yeah,
click, put a put bubbles on this screen, and it's going to make bubbles show up. You can do it in a millisecond. Now, stick a clown in the background. Boom, there it is. You can just type it in there. That's reality. And I think that designers who are so angry about it are going to stick their head in the sand and watch this whole industry pass them by because it's not going to go away. It's not going to go away.
yeah. I think that the what I recognize from advertising in what you're saying is so true. What's interesting is, so when I worked like in Leo Burnett in London, for example, um, you would have all the creatives on the third floor. And our job was just to come up with ideas all day long. That's the currency that you're valued for.
Mhm.
And ironically, I came out of Kingston with a graphic design degree, and it was worthless in advertising. So I had to learn from scratch how to think creatively. On the ground floor were all the Mac technicians, and these were people who were seen almost like worker bees. So it's like I would sketch it out and send it down to them, and they would do it. I didn't care who did it, but they were doing it for me.
Mhm.
Now, they were really great people, great designers, but there is this, you're very much aware that in that agency world, you're like a worker bee or a battery. When you burn out, they just switch you out for another one. They don't really
Hmm.
care about you because you're just production.
Hmm.
So I think that even if AI hadn't come along, if the logo designers aren't careful and aren't leveling up and trying to find a way of standing out, they were only going to be competing against themselves. So I love the fact you're saying you're this is a weapon, because if you're using this right, this can be like a creative partner to really speed up your workflow and stop you from chasing dead ends. So I think it's it's also a bit like with the generative AI. I think it's like a recipe. It's this thing of, I can follow a recipe and cook for you and you think I'm quite good, but if you take the recipe away, you'll
Oh
realize how
yeah.
rubbish I am.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't become too reliant on that. And it's actually in the cooking and the mistakes and the tasting is where you learn it. So like my wife, who's a great cook, she fixes whatever I make. I don't, it's like in, in Ratatouille, he'll just taste it, fix it, taste
Hmm.
it, and it's
Hmm.
brilliant. It's the same thing with this. If you're too reliant on AI to kind of to outsource your thinking to the machines, then I think that that's going to be your vulnerability. That, as you said, you have to look at this almost like a cyborg approach, which is like, this can make me like RoboCop. It's going to make me better because it's going to enhance my blind spots. And that's where I find, like, I mean, before we talked, I was looking and I saw some guy, he was in a drive-through for some reason, saying you can do 1 month of your content calendar in 9 minutes with these prompts on ChatGPT.
Hmm.
And it's like the incentive there is what, 9 minutes? It's like this is mad. I saw an advert for Jasper.ai, and it was basically a marketing agency full of dimwits who are all relying on Jasper AI to do the work for them. Even the boss was a dimwit. And what you don't realize is the ad for the company is basically going, we're coming to replace you.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the clients that's going to go, we'll take the robot and we'll shut you down. It's
Yeah.
like, no, 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 this is the wrong message. So I love,
Yeah.
if you can learn a way of using AI almost like conversationally, if you use it on the app, it's so great because you can have a conversation with AI now, can't you? You can talk to it and go,
Yeah.
tell me this, but what about that? Okay, explain it to me like a child, and don't stop explaining it to it till I tell you I understand. It's phenomenal for like filling in those holes that conventional education has lost. So I agree. If you're a logo designer, I think you might have to level up anyway, regardless of AI, because there's always going to be someone who's going to outcompete you on price, probably. And if you get a price focused client, it's over. They're going to go, well, that guy's cheaper. And so it's very difficult. So I love the fact you go, okay, how can this sort of level me up so I can offer a better end service for my clients so I'm more valuable?
Yeah.
That I think is the way to use it.
I think so too. And I think that there's another angle too. So one option for designers is level up into the strategic side of design,
Yeah.
understanding that Photoshop is just a tool for you the same way that Midjourney is just a tool for you to help you generate better results. If you start looking at it that way, that's the strategic side of design. The other way that you can survive as a designer or a creative person in general is to hyper niche to a point where your style is so sought after that people will hire, they want an Aaron Draplin. I've never talked to Aaron Draplin. I need to do some content with him at some point, but I haven't asked ever. Anyway, his style is so, everybody's so aware of it. And a lot of other designers have copied his bold
Yeah.
logo style and his junking style of creative idea generation. But when push comes to shove, there are people out there who want to buy an Aaron Draplin logo so that they can say Aaron Draplin designed my logo. The
Yes.
style and the name attached to it has value, and AI is not going to replace that ever. That's going to be the
No.
thing. That's going to be like having using the paint, using the painting filter in Photoshop versus having Monet paint the lily pads himself. Some people want to spend the millions on the Monet version that was painted itself. So designers can do the same thing. You can hyper niche into a style of your design that becomes sought after. That's an avenue that can be a survival avenue for growth for you and make AI obsolete in your world. Or you go the creative strategic leadership route But one of those two, I don't believe that you can stay a production designer, like you mentioned,
No.
on the third floor, and that's a viable position for you for the next 10 years. Maybe you're going to get 5 or 10 years out of it, but by then, make me logo, push button. That's what's going to be happening. It already is.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's the thing. I'd be interested to know at what point on Aaron Draplin's timeline did you start to feel that way about him? So like what is so it's interesting because his work is great, but at what point did Draplin, the man and the myth, become so compelling and attractive?
His
And
book. It was his book. You know,
okay,
when his book came out, and then you see the big beard and you see the hat and you see his process in the book of junking and go junking or whatever his thing is. And then
yeah,
when I started to follow him on social media and I see the brand of human that he is behind the scenes and how synergistic it is with the work that he's actually producing too. It was just like the whole package comes together, and it's held in high esteem to me. I think he's doing it all so right for what designers have to start considering. And you don't have to do it on a global level. You can be the Aaron Draplin of your small town in Tennessee. You can
yeah.
be that person. Doesn't have to be, I got to go write a book and become and speak at Adobe Max. It doesn't have to become that.
No, I totally agree. I've got his book behind me, so
Yeah.
I know exactly how you feel. But what's interesting is all the things that you mentioned, they weren't just to do with his, his actual end product. It was
Yeah.
like his story, his background, his dad, his family, the junking. It's like
Yeah.
the personality of the guy,
Yeah.
which that again is your advantage because AI can't really accurately replicate that in a believable way. I know it.
Yeah.
People have done this with AI models, but that's the thing that I think humans connect with. So if you are a logo designer who wants to pursue it, I think that maybe you need to think about maybe I need to bring in more in my personality and my hobbies, my life into building my personal brand because my personal brand is going to be the thing that will fend off AI. So
Yeah.
it's this thing of as well as doing the logos, that's great, but the personal brand that there's something in that you can't well there are perceptions of what we perceive people to be. That's why it's hard to spot fake gurus because they look like what we expect them to be
Mm.
and they sound like it, but I love Aaron Draplin as well. I've never spoken to him either, but I would love to. And like I said, I love the way he thinks, the way he goes about his life, what he stands for, his values. So I think that for me is the interesting bit of actually, if you were to kind of go, well, if I'm going to surpass AI, I've almost got to lean into becoming more human. So for me, that's the interesting bit. So it's this case of if I can become more human and show the human side of me, then I'm less of vulnerable to AI.
Okay. So let me respond to that because we were talking about Aaron Draplin. One of the things that you brought up was the humanity and the brand and his father and knowing the story and all that stuff. Man, I have since I started creating content, I have been preaching the get in front of your clients, present your proposal, go to their office, get them on a Zoom call. And if you do, you are going to beat the people who are hiding behind written emails, emailing a proposal, emailing an idea. If you can get your clients on a face to face in some fashion, you're going to win. And I believe that now more than ever, that is a piece that all designers or creative entrepreneurs need to embrace. Because if you don't, then you're not leveraging your biggest strength, which is your own personal humanity. That's your biggest strength in the sales process and in the presentation of work, which is also part of the sales process. You're selling the client on this idea or this design or that design. Get it in front of them and talk to them about it. And you're going to protect yourself from the AI tools that just push a button and it spits
Yeah.
it out. So embrace your own humanity, start getting in front of your clients, and then take the next step and start making social media content in some channel of video content. You got to get over the fear of it because it's the biggest differentiator between you and Skynet. that's coming.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going to be afraid of Skynet and want the human if you can effectively sell your humanity to them.
No, you're absolutely right. It's funny. I'm working on something at the moment which is similar to this, and I wanted to make it so it's all to do with the creative people naturally are real introverts and they don't like selling. So they'd much rather kind of leave, I guess, much more passive, like you say, comments and likes and hope
Mm-hmm.
eventually that someone notices them. But as you know, it's not going to happen. It's the person that just walks up to the and starts the conversation and they'll get the job before they've even seen you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on a similar process and I'm trying to think of it like Weight Watchers, where you're awarded points for the harder the task. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you hit 10 points a day, and it's like five a sales call is 5 points. So you can do two sales calls a day, or you get 1 point for leaving five comments. So like you
Mm-hmm.
can leave 50
Mm-hmm.
comments or make two sales calls.
Yeah.
And it's this thing of it's that simple. Hit your points every day and it will
Yeah.
impact you. And it's like, and ironically, the more you do it, the easier it is. So you go, actually, if I just turn up twice a day or make two of those awful things I'm terrified of, boom, I'm hitting my points. And as you know, that will move the needle for you and the
Mm-hmm.
anxiety disappears when you've got work booked up. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the humanity, people connect on humanity. I think it's it's a weird, it sounds really vague and obvious, but I do think it's the difference. I know, and the fact that more people can use the AI also undervalues the AI because it's so common now. I'm fascinated to know that everyone can buy these prompts on ChatGPT, but how does the content perform? It feels great to go, oh, I've got my content calendar, like setting goals. The nasty bit is, yeah, work toward it, but make the content that you're not involved in, that you're kind of a bit like, will this work? And watch people ignore it. It's
Yeah.
internet pollution. That's the bit I think it just comes too easy, and I don't think
Yeah.
humans value stuff that comes too
Yeah.
easy.
I agree. I love that. Those are great thoughts. Um, it's it's not the reason, but it's a great support of my leaning into video content, which I kind of started about a year ago. I'm not making a lot. I do some written content in my newsletter, so I keep that going, but I'm not making a lot of carousels these days because
Yeah.
anybody can crank out a carousel. But getting in front of the camera and speaking into the lens and having the ability to deliver some kind of a coherent lesson to somebody in the time frame that they give you, AI is not replacing that tomorrow. Now, I know that people are replicating the Joe Rogan voice and making reels and whatever about stealing identities. That's identity theft in AI. I know that that's there, but the AI person is not going to walk into your client's office and the AI isn't going to respond on a Zoom call for now to the client that you're trying to upsell. It's not what's happening. You got to lean into getting in front of the people. And then when they say, well, why should I use you instead of AI? You can say, why would you ever want to use AI that doesn't feel and have intuition about your customer? I can tell you, we did this design and this is why we feel it is going to work best for you. AI is not going to tell you that because it can't feel, doesn't have the empathy. And if you go to design thinking model from 20 years ago, empathy is like step number one. Understand your audience and
Yeah.
have empathy for how they feel and what their goals and desires, and understand all of those things about them. And then what is their problem? And then how do we solve it and prototype and go through that design thinking process, which has become the UX design process. I think it's so important for designers for your survival to not neglect that. And ironically, this is something I've seen over the last couple of years of haters. Almost everybody who comes in to bash on any kind of post, they hardly ever have their picture even in the thumbnail. Like their
No,
profile pic will be some kind of a graphic.
they're a
Ironically,
bot,
could
ironically.
easily be an AI generated graphic. It does.
Well, they're probably an AI person, aren't they? They're just a
It
bot,
could
ironically.
be. It could be. It could be. So these people, they're not even leaning into their humanity enough to even put their own face in the profile pic. You got to change that in order to survive in the robots versus human world that we're entering into.
It's funny because I've looked at like AI editors that remove all the filler words, and I kind of feel I don't want that. I know
Mhm.
it's going to be a bit crap to have the ums and the whatever, but I kind of again I think you're just everyone's chasing the same diminishing returns. Like it's just what do you do? Optimize so like it's just an over.
Mhm.
Again, I don't think it makes any penetration. It's not meaningful. It's like when you're talking about the client, why should I choose you over AI? It's like I want to say something like, would you get AI to write your wedding vows? It's like when it
Mhm.
matters, you want to do it because your wife's
Mhm.
gonna know, or your wife
Mhm.
to be is gonna know, and how's she gonna find out? How's that gonna go down? We've seen enough movies where
Mhm.
you try and be someone else, and it doesn't work. Also, this is on this theme. This is what drove all those pickup artists crazy from years ago. There was that Neil Strauss book, The Game, where
Mhm.
you had to put on a persona of fake confidence and then undermine the confidence of these girls, these poor girls. And the problem was deep down, you were like, well, they don't like me for me. They like me for the person I'm pretending to be. So if you let AI take over too much, you know deep down that like the only success here is because the robot is beating the person, and that's horrible. So I think for your own sanity, you've got to go, I need to be involved somewhere. And I even remember David Hyatt, who I love, talking about when he was doing a job as a decorator. He said one of the most important parts of the job was having tea with the customers. He said that was their biggest way of getting new business because they all want to talk to someone. And I
Mhm.
remember he was like making a cup of tea and his boss was there and he's like, oh, I better put it down. He said, no, no, have the tea. Say yes to the tea every time because that's how we get repeat business. Because if
Yeah.
they like you, they'll want to invite you back. And like, I don't know about you, but I can't stop myself from offering a tea to
Yeah.
the handyman. And if I trust them, I'm locked in for life.
Yeah.
They don't even be able to fix the toilet because they're an electrician. But I'd go to them and go, if you can't do it, do you know a plumber?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there. I've been there where you like a vendor so much. You're like, dang, I wish you could fix all my stuff. I
Yeah.
wish you just, can you learn it and fix it? Because I just want to hire you because of
Yeah.
the
Can I
person.
pay for a course to teach you so you
Yeah.
can come back and I'll make you tea and you make stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. I think
But
there's
I
some
think,
reality in that. So just hammering that point home that we've been talking about, that's the big differentiation between you and the robot is you. And you
yeah,
have to embrace that. You have to embrace it in your style, in your presentation. You have to get in front of the people. I going to lunch with my clients. We're in the US. We don't have afternoon tea and all the whatever tea you guys do over there.
we play
The
croquet and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, you're playing croquet and drinking tea at 3 o'clock every afternoon. We don't do
Yeah.
that here. Uh, but lunch, man, lunch. I built my whole business on taking my clients out to lunch.
And
And
golf. That's the other
it
thing, is it?
was,
All
yeah,
that all the business happens there. They're a captive audience. And you don't like I don't play golf, but it took me years to go, oh, that's why everyone's playing golf.
yeah.
Because that's where the deals happen.
Yeah. Because after 9 holes, you're friends and you
Yeah.
trust each other and you've joked around and you built a memory and now you want to work with each other. It really is why golf has become the cliche business deal place.
I guess it's
Yeah.
also if you were recommending a restaurant, you would say, "Oh, you have to come and eat here because the chef's great, his food's great." It's like it always comes back to like a personal touch, I think,
Mhm.
is what makes the difference, which leads to the recommendation. Like I think there's something in that can be easily overlooked, which is like it's so tempting to use AI to get you the results, but I just feel that people just recommend. I remember it's always know, like, and trust, isn't it? It's like they've got to get to know you and like you before they want to work with you. And I think if you rush too forward using AI to get the end result, I think it's yes. I wonder if there's an element of like once they realize it's AI, isn't it? Once they realize that it's AI, why do they need you? That's what I also feel a little bit. Because if they get your prompt and they're like, I can just teach an intern to copy your prompts, and I'm fairly sure like you've cannibalized your process and now you're no longer relevant because you've become overly reliant on prompts, if you know what I mean.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a scary if you're not changing your behavior as a designer, creative entrepreneur, creative services provider, and whatever you're doing, if you're not changing your behavior to make it more human in your day-to-day interactions with your clients, your business is at risk by
Yeah.
the AI tools. They'll replace you because the marketing manager can go buy the prompts or steal the prompts or take the prompts from somebody's blog or whatever and just output whatever you're outputting. There's no difference between you. All you are is a robot behind an email anyway.
Yes. And this is the thing. I remember there was a really good Steve Jobs quote about creativity and creative people. And he says that there creative people are able to connect dots that other people don't see. And it just comes naturally to them. So I'm biased in this because I had to retrain my thinking for advertising. But I think that part of the when I'm using AI, or I know people who are good at using Mid Journey, that, like I said with the Mourinho success thing, they know what they're looking for. That's why they can get such good out sort of end outputs in the way, because they know when it's right and when it isn't right, or like, no, that's different. I want that. I want that. I want this. I think that there's a real opportunity in building a network, as you say, learning interesting things that other people can't learn. So again, you might be able to utilize AI, but it's your thinking and your brain is what you're hired for. So you might evolve into this like a creative director. It's like I do less work hands-on, but I have a team of people who come to me because I have the vision, which is what you
Yeah.
get at big fashion houses. So I think that's a big part of it. But I was going to say, like, I've used AI in work several times successfully to amplify what I was doing. So when you said about cloning voices, I recorded a promo video because I consult as an ECD for a
Mm-hmm.
blockchain startup, and we had to do a promo video, and it was very difficult to get because the guy who was recording it is our chief technology officer. He's out in Dubai. He's not always available. So what we did is we just got him to record a minute of him speaking the script. But the problem is, if you change the script, you've got to get him back in the studio. So it's like, this is really awkward. So what I did is I went to this site, it's 11 labs, and you can go in there, and I put in his recording
Mm-hmm.
and I adjusted the script several times over. And of course, we got a really good output. And so much so that his boss goes, he's getting really good at this. He sounds really
Oh boy.
confident. And I was like, I can't better tell you, but this is a robot cloning him because he's not a natural voiceover artist. But this was so good at getting us the script down to like, you can rewrite the script
Yeah.
however you need to, and then you just reproduce the voice again. Now, I'm all for getting proper actors in, but it's expensive and it's not possible. So this was an example of like AI saved us so much time and inconvenience.
Yeah.
But again, it's only having the forethought to go, okay, if we can get him to record a couple of minutes of audio, that's enough for us to use. He can go back to his job. We can
Yeah.
rewrite the script several times. It's so helpful.
Okay, so what do you say to the people who say, well, that just stole voice actor work from somebody else?
Oh, I'd say that the budget wasn't available for the voice actor. And I have also, on the other side, I paid 5 grand for Mark Strong to do a voiceover for a 30-second promo reel that was just an internal video. So like I'm prepared to pay the money for the right people. And again, because when you get a really good actor in the room, you can give them can you say it again? But I just want a bit more emphasis on these kind of words, make it more dramatic. They'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
They're brilliant at that, and that's what you're paying for is their ability. Like we did, I'd never forgot. Oh, what's his name? He played Victor Maitland in Beverly Hills Cop. Like I can't remember. He's a brilliant old kind of thespian, a real bad guy. He was in Vikings as well. What's he called? Oh, I've got. Oh God,
Okay,
that's
while
so
you're
annoying.
telling the story, I'll look
So
it up.
anyway, so we were like, we need a voiceover guy. My friend, the client, really liked Anthony Hopkins. I was like, we can't get Anthony Hopkins. So we got this guy who you're going to tell me in a minute. And he was lovely, real old thespian, brilliant. And I invited the clients to the radio recording and they loved it. And what they loved about it was he was so good at kind of coming up with ideas to make the script better. So he would kind of like go, this is fine, but it's not working. How about I do it this way? And he came up with a way of doing that I hadn't even thought of. And you're like, oh, that's brilliant. That's even better. I love that. And so, again, I'm all for hiring the people because they bring years of expertise. Where if I don't know that, I'm limited by what I can sort of pump into AI. But it's sort of horses for courses, if you know what I mean.
Stephen Burkhoff. That's
That's
his
it,
name.
Stephen Burkhoff. Yeah,
Yeah,
he was
Stephen Burkhoff.
amazing.
Yeah.
He was it like a real novel. It was just one of those things that a bit of a bucket list one. But
Yeah.
I would also say the other day I was rebranding a client, and he wanted new copywriters. And he was like, I need to come up with some sort of document that I can give to get the copywriters up to speed. And I was like, yeah, and it needs to be evergreen enough that if you change copywriters, they can immediately give it to a new set of copywriters and they know what to do. And they didn't have one. And it was they needed to create a tone of voice document. And
Mm.
I hadn't created one for a very long time. So I just was like, okay, so who needs what? So I was like, okay, the big things here we need to consider. I'm going to make it very simple. It's like, how do we sound to the people we're talking to? How do they want us to talk to them? How do we want them to feel when they read our copy? And how do we want them to react? And then the other bit I did was like, what's our sort of 10 commandments of copy? So it's like, this is our how we speak. I use ChatGPT to help me put that together as a brief to brief the copywriters. And they came back with virtually no notes. And they said that document was so helpful for us because and they said, this is really good. And I go, well, it's the first one I've done. And they go, because normally we get terrible ones. And I have to go, well, it's luck. But it was this
Mm.
thing of ChatGPT was so good because it would give me the basic framework that I knew what I wanted. I could tweak it and adjust it. And then you can ask it questions, what have I overlooked? What do you think is missing? What would,
Yeah.
all of this, it means it fleshes it out. And I always say to the client, look, I've developed this with ChatGPT. It was really useful, but it's me running it. It's my brain and my opinion in
Mm.
here. And he's like, no, this works. This is great. The copywriters are happy. I think that's when you're honest and you go, I've used it as a tool. It's just sped up where I could get to. And I'm awful for overthinking how to write like copy and stuff like this. It just like trying to write a landing page. My God, I'll just do 3 hours of research and then 3 hours of overthinking and produce nothing. So this sometimes it's quite helpful to get out the conventional answer and go, okay, that's what convention does. What do I respond to as a human? And let's try and build that back into it, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that's great. What do you say? This is kind of a leading question. The the designers, the copywriters in that example, you stole the work from other copywriters. You could have paid a copywriter. Go find a good copywriter, have them help you create a tone of voice document. Because you use ChatGPT, there's some copywriter out there in the world that didn't get the work. Designers, illustrators, Midjourney, dall-e, they're all stealing the work that could have been paid to people. Now, this is the leading question part.
Yeah.
What is there's only one way it stops, in my opinion, and that's a mass boycott and mass lawsuits against all of the businesses that are building and providing these AI tools. Everybody from Adobe to Google to Facebook and Microsoft, ChatGPT, down the list. You're going to go to battle with those people in order to stop this from happening. What is the likelihood of that happening at this point?
I, it's about as likely as everyone agreeing not to fight anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is just,
It was a leading question because I'm just
yeah.
helping. I'm trying to
Well, no,
highlight the
you're right.
reality that this is not stopping. This is not going to stop. And you have to figure out, how do you embrace it in your workflow? And you can be as mad as a hornet, but you still have to figure out how you embrace it in your workflow, or you're
Well,
going to be left behind.
me doing that created the budget to afford the copywriters. There wasn't the budget available overall. So it was like, well, we want to use these people, but we can't because they're going to, if we have to get the tone of voice document as well, I can't afford them. So they wouldn't have got the job, is the truth. So I was like,
Mhm.
I'll help create the tone of voice document. It's an old friend. So I was like, look, I'll just bundle it into my fee. It's fine. So
Yeah.
you could argue I took a hit to help them get a job. But I would say, if you're a copywriter, why don't you use ChatGPT to produce a similar document and sell that? But again, make it your own because you, as an expert, you know what's in it. So it's this thing of, if I'm a chef, I can get a recipe for bolognese off ChatGPT, but I also know as a chef like what it's missing, and that's where the value is. So I'm interested to it's my job to use it as a tool to productize my services to help other people who maybe cannot afford me. And that, again, I've got an example of a prompt. I think I sent it to you that was on David Hyatt's
Yeah.
Lazy Discipline course,
Yeah.
and I'll read it out for the people listening just to understand how people are using it like a tool, which I think is fascinating. So I'll find the where is it? So he gives the example of, look, the quality of the output is only as good as the quality of the prompts you're able to put in. So if you put into ChatGPT, how do you write great copy? It's going to give you a fairly standardized response. And you could put that into Google and get the same sort of thing. But in Google, you're going to get the articles with the best SEO. So they're skewed anyway. The prompt that he changed this to, David did in the course, and this is, if you think he's working at this level, it's quite terrifying because you go, God, this course is about a year old and he's already moving on. But this is what he changed the prompt to: how to write persuasive copy through a relatable but emotional story that highlights pain points, that gives me authority and shows off the benefits of my unique system for creative entrepreneurs who sell knowledge on how to launch via a newsletter without feeling needy, in a tone that is both uplifting and irreverent, and closes with an offer that will go away in 24 hours time, in the style of Bill Byrne back in his golden years of winning award after award. Then, just for fun, write it in the style of Elon Musk so I can compare the two. Now, that as a prompt, to even think of that and those reference points, is astonishing to me. But the answers you get out are fascinating.
Mm.
And that's where I think you're going from using it as a tool to make you better. And one of the questions that I'd probably ask of you, Mike, is, would you consider updating or changing or creating a GPT for your amazing freelance courses? Because if you create your own GPT, people can go through the course and be asking the GPT questions as they're going. It can be
Yeah.
testing them, and I think that's really. I met a guy. I can introduce you. He's phenomenal at Chat GPT. Like, really interesting. He's a video strategist, and he's able to produce astonishing prompts. I mean, genuinely astonishing. And he can create GPT specifically to do specific tasks. I
Yeah.
think a GPT that was like the equivalent to guide you through the course, having known the materials, will be such a great benefit.
Yeah.
Because then you're in this thing of, I've got my own little chat bot to help guide me and almost test my
Yeah.
answers and understanding. I think it could be really valuable in that case, you know?
So my response to that is, the more things like that pop up, the more I'm going to lean into the humanity side of things. Last year I started my community, More Creative Academy. I have 100 something people in there that I do group coaching with and respond to their DMs. And when they have a problem on Saturday night and they send me a DM saying, my client just said this to me, what do I do? And I reply back to them in DM and say, oh man, that sucks. I had that exact same thing happen to me. Here's what I did, and here's what I think you should do. That's what I'm leaning into. And the idea of a GPT that replicates me, I'm going the other direction in my whole positioning of everything. The more it goes down that route, the more I'm going to be like, you know what? You can have a robot all day long if that's what you want. But if you want a real mentor who's going to reply to your real problems in your real business and life, that's who I want to be. I'll send you a Loom video reply, and you're gonna feel the difference between me and a GPT. So that's where I'm going. And I'm practicing what I've been preaching here: is get yourself in the mix of this. Don't let the robot replace you because you're afraid to be the person who gets on screen or in face to face with the people that you're trying to serve.
I also, yeah, I completely agree. And also, when you're solving problems for people, you have anecdotal evidence which reinforces your authority, and you can relate to them with empathy to make them feel better. And that is, I think, the one thing that you can see a lot of content, people don't share stories because they don't have them. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the problem. You know, you've
Mm-hmm.
become boring because you're always at work, or
Mm-hmm.
you're leveraging prompts. It's the thing of being able to pick, there was this time which I did this, and this is what I think. And that, it's easier as parents because we kind of have to have these lessons with our kids as they get older. But anecdotally, that's not only far more compelling, and the story goes into people's minds and they relate to it more. But that, I think, I don't know if AI, what can it do? It's going to sound odd. It's making up these still stories. It's like it's kind of rubbish. So I think
Yeah.
I agree with you. I would much rather lean into the humanity, because I think that's what matters to people so much. And like I said, the vulnerability of AI is it's easy to replicate.
Yeah.
But I would also say this is what I don't know the answer to this, so I'm hoping you might. But this is, the whole thing of in a gold rush, you need to be the one selling
Yeah.
shovels.
Yeah.
This is an AI gold rush.
Yeah.
What is the equivalent of a shovel at the
Yeah.
moment, Mike?
Oh man, that's a good question. And I feel unequipped to even answer it. I could speculate and say maybe it's the prompts, maybe it's courses on how to use the AI tools, maybe it's a blog that you spin up or a social channel that, and people have done this. They've spun up social media YouTube channels that are
Yeah,
all about,
faceless channels. Yeah.
yeah, how to use AI. They're or the faceless channels too. Yeah, using AI generated crap to, but that's the noise. But somebody who's out there saying, here's the way that you can use it best, and here's how you come up with your prompts. Some of those channels, I see them. They're getting tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of views because they go and take you through how to do it all right in Midjourney and get the results that you're looking for. So those are examples of, I think, what would be the shovels in today's gold rush of AI. I don't know. Jasper is one of them. Jasper's AI isn't built on some new AI. It's built into ChatGPT, as far as I know. That's what it's
Yeah.
talking to. It's just the interface and prompt guide that helps you get the most out of ChatGPT as the actual AI tool behind the scenes. And does that mean Jasper doesn't have value because it's not its own machine learning thing and it's leveraging some other tool? No, it helps you get better results because of the prompts that it feeds into the chat GPT itself.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because, like you said, what I've always wondered is if you're doing that, creating faceless content, I think there comes a part of you. Like I had this is probably why I'm not as active as I should be on social media, is if you're not putting out content that you're happy with or is true to you, you build an audience of people that you don't like because it's like, oh, I've been putting out stuff and now I've attracted people who either are looking for a very transactional relationship with me. So if I did say, by the way, I've got a course coming out, they're like, well, I'm not paying for that because I want the free stuff. And the audience you attract with a faceless channel, you'd probably go, well, if it's just for money anyway, I want to know what you do with the money because that's your real passion. So I'm interested to know, like, what is it you're doing? And actually, if you're the artist who goes, well, oh, I don't need to spend the money on anything because I'm doing what I love anyway, I think you've won. The key is to kind of go, if I can have the confidence to build an audience of people who I like as well, I think you're really up there because the
Mm-hmm.
temptation to build metrics and followers, that would be the thing that would put me off, like you say, doing kind of a course on it because it feels easy. It's just I'm attracting people that I wouldn't want to talk to in real life. So how much fun is this? I've trapped myself in a weird, like, kind of prison of terrible people.
Yeah,
Surely
you
with
saw this happen a few years ago. You and I have been in the Instagram design community for the last 3, 4 years already. Anyway, you saw this happen when people who were had a design account and then all of a sudden they changed it to be an Instagram growth, how to grow an Instagram account. How many people did this? And now they're trapped with their 500,000 followers on a how to grow on Instagram account, and all
yeah,
their content is about how do we adapt to the algorithm that's changing 24/7, and they're stuck in this world. And I feel so bad for them because in the original world they were trying to share design knowledge and share their design work and stuff, but
yeah,
they chased the algorithm because Instagram growth accounts were doing well. They chased the algorithm into this. You saw this happen too with the dancing and pointing and all of that kind of
oh
stuff
god,
that
yeah,
that happened on shorts and reels, TikToks over the past about year and a half. And every time I see somebody do that, I get like, oh, now you're going to be the dancer. Now, yeah, because it did well and used the trending audio, you're going to be the dancer. That just makes me sick. So you do have to be true to yourself. And I think that's the point you were
yeah,
making about what's the shovel? Well, pick a shovel that actually you like. You got to pick a
yeah,
shovel you like and not just chase what is potentially you're going to make shovels. Don't make shovels because there's a gold rush. Make shovels because you love shovels, and you love shovels so much that you're going to sell them whether there's a gold rush or not. You're going to make the greatest shovel that there ever was. That's the key to
That
finding
that's
some happiness in this
that's
world.
genius. That's the Alex Hormozy, like, what's the best place to sell something? It's like you sell food to a starving crowd. It's like it's not the location, it's just hungry people. So like if you love shovels, you need to be at the head of the latest gold rush because that's where lots of people want them. But this is, yeah, because I think I said it to you. There was a guy, he's brilliant at Mid Journey. Don't get me wrong. And I watch his stuff and I'm like, wow, this is impressive.
Yeah.
Um, um, and he was talking about he'd always wanted to be a Nat Geo photographer. So he spent his whole weekend playing on Mid Journey with doing Nat Geo photos. And I just thought, this is so sad. It's because if you really wanted to be the photographer, why can't you be the photographer, or at least maybe sell the courses to get to go and do the photography? But these animals you're taking photos of don't exist. It's like
Mm.
it's not real. There is something in, like, the joy of photographing the animal is because it's so rare. It's like it's so hard to do. That's what gives it value. And then like, and he was giving a talk at a conference about creating loads of ad assets in AI really quickly. And it's this thing of, part of me goes, yeah, but the joy of a shoot is the shoot. It's all the other stuff. It's all the small talk, the trip away, the meals out. Like that's the joy of it. Like if you think the joy is in the final product, you're missing out. Like it's everything else. The whole point of going on a shoot is that it's unusual. You go to a nice place, you meet the photographer, you get on. I love going on shoots. I don't want to sit in my office and just pump out loads of fake adverts and think I'm winning, because you're not, because you're still like it's the Matrix. You're in your box, trapped, thinking you're living a life. And so I think this is the other thing of like, there is so much value in living a life, which when you bring back to AI, that's when you have the secret weapon, because it's like now you know what it really is like. Bring that into your work. And now it's like that's the secret. I kind of feel I was heartbroken for him going, he can't see the irony.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad. Or use AI on the front end to storyboard the shots you're actually going to take
Yeah.
in real life. Use it to capture the ideas and the framing and the shot list, and then go and shoot it with your camera on location in real life. I think that there's
Yeah.
something in that. Um, well, we just blew through 75 minutes of conversation. I think we got to point number one on both of our conversation topics. We can talk
Yes.
till we're blue in the face on this. We should probably do a follow up after things change in 3 months, um, which I'd be happy to do. Do you
Absolutely.
have any final little thoughts that of some big nugget that you were like, oh, I got to drop this wisdom bomb somewhere in there that you didn't land on?
I don't think so. I think I kind of agree with you. I think you got to go in the opposite direction, because I think if you lean too much into it's the same as I feel about following design trends.
Hmm.
I think the mistake of following a trend is that not only does your work look like everyone else's, but it dates super quickly, which means your portfolio looks out of date 6 months after you've made the work, which is a real vulnerability.
Hmm.
I think the opportunity is in pushing yourself to connect with people, particularly people outside your industry, because you bring back knowledge and experience, which is really valuable. And that enriches you. And then the key to all of this is, one, people want to work with you because they like who you are as a person. And you're going to sell more work because you have anecdotal, interesting stories. And then the way you think is going to generate better results. And so AI is just really a way of speeding up the right workflows and trying to look at where can AI add to what I do versus take away what I do, and just be very aware of that. So if it can speed up your workflow, as you said, to generate a shot list in 10 minutes, that then frees you up for an hour or 2 hours to go and have a conversation with a really interesting someone, outside of your industry, a chef or a musician about creativity, or listen to a podcast or go for a walk, then I think we're in this sweet spot of like, I'm developing as a creative person, and I'm also like, not, I'm using this to kind of, I'm still at pace, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
I think you got
Yeah.
to lean into the humanity, and don't be scared of AI, because we've been around, Mike, haven't we? There's only going to be something coming in 5 years time which is going to
Yeah.
take it over. So like, this is humanity and the evolution,
Yeah.
really. I think can't
Yeah.
escape it.
Good. I love that as some closing thoughts. I'll add the last little piece. The other option you have is to organize a mass boycott of all of the mega brands, mega businesses, the biggest tech multi-trillion dollar, literally multi-trillion dollar companies that are leaning heavy into AI. That's your other option. And if you want to organize that in the comments of this video, then that's fine. Try and get some people on board. It'll only help engagement of our conversation. I don't think, and that's why I asked you that leading question, it's unrealistic. And so you have to stop putting your head in the sand as much as you hate it. And I understand the ethical complications of generative AI in both copy and imagery. I understand your frustrations, but it's not going away. And so you've got to not bury your head in the sand. You've got to figure out how you're going to adapt. It's not going to, there's not going to be a mass boycott of the mega businesses that are pushing it so heavily. It's coming. It's happening. It's already happening. You can hate on us for even talking about it if you want to. The comment section is open for that. But I highly recommend you figure out how you're going to use this and in a justifiable way in your own workflow, or you're going to get left behind.
You can bring people together. The enemy isn't AI, it's helping each other try and go, how can we overcome this? And that
Yeah.
might just be like, how can we refer work to each other? How can we, team up? I
Good for
I
you.
think
That's
that
a positive spin to my very negative
no, not at all.
conclusion, like
It's
negative conclusion.
I'm sure after every success you've had, there was a pivotal negative or something which spurred you into action. It's all great sporting comebacks come from this.
Yeah.
So like, what would Chicago Bears you were saying, is that the one?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What would Mike Ditka make of AI?
Yeah. Yeah.
He wouldn't tolerate
we,
it.
we haven't been good since Mike Ditka, so it's been a long haul for the Chicago Bears.
But
Anyway,
I think the thing is, any challenge only makes you better because you have to respond to it.
yeah.
That's the only thing. It will make you a better designer over your career. It will accelerate your development because it will force you to evolve and adapt. And I think as long as we don't see it as the enemy, we just see it as an opportunity to get better. And actually, if we put our heads together and we understand as humans, what do we respond to? Then if we put that and reflect it back at ourselves and go, well, I spend more money on these things and I like watching these things and I go here because it's, even though it's more expensive, but I prefer it. Why is that?
Yeah.
Reflect that in your own work and then do it for your clients, really.
Yeah. Really good. Really good. Yeah. So let this force you into a pivot in your in the way that you perceive your career. You
Yeah,
got to
you're
let
not
it
alone.
force you into it.
Everyone's dealing with it. It's tough,
Yep.
but we can all help each other through it, really.
Yeah. Good. Love that. Okay, Thad,
Cool.
thank you. This is super fun.
No, I loved it, Mike. Thank you very much. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it coming. I'd love to come back.
I know. Yeah, well, let's do it. Yeah, we barely scratched the surface of all the things we could have talked about. But hopefully some people listen to it and get some thoughts. I really do want to change the way that a lot of the people who are hating on it and starting the Reddit threads, just ripping on AI. Man, I hope that they get their head out of the sand. That's my biggest piece of this whole thing.
The sad thing is that they're stealing, they're robbing themselves of their time twice because
Yeah,
they're getting bitter and upset, and they could be spending it on their work that they love, but
yeah,
instead you're locked in a forum. It doesn't help.
yeah, yep. All right, man. Well, thank you. I'll post my assets. I put that in my email thing, but I'll post it all onto a Dropbox and send you a link. And if
Okay,
you do the
cool. Thank
same,
you.
that would be great. And then I'll make sure when I share any pieces of this, tag you up. And like I said in my thing, in my write up, also feel free to use and share whatever you want out of it too.
No, absolutely. I'll put it through an AI processor and it will tell me
Yeah,
which are the
yours will
best
be
bits.
done. Yours will be done in 10 minutes. Mine will be done in
I've
two
done it already,
days.
Mike. It's already done. The
It's
robot's
already
done
done.
it, so
It's
it's
already
fine.
posted. Dang.
Yeah. I was going to say, did you tick the AI summary option? I was going to say,
You
because
know
that was,
what? I use Otter, and so
oh yeah,
Otter joined, and it does the AI summary automatically. It's so good too. Gives you the takeaways and the
yeah.
summary. It's like with a freaking note taker. $60 a
No,
month, easy money spent in my mind.
yeah. Oh, it was amazing. Really
Yeah,
good.
in my community, whenever we repost a session, my community manager, she'll post the entire transcript. So now the entire session is searchable. You can search on
Oh,
there for
fantastic.
when was Disney mentioned in my community? And it'll give you every place it was ever mentioned in a video, because she posts the whole transcript from.
Oh, wow. I suppose the next step is going, summarize this entire meeting with the 10 top takeaways. And it's
That's
like,
what it does already. It already does it. Yeah.
Like, so you don't
It's
need
so
to
good.
watch it. I've just got, and they just clone your voice, and it's like,
Yeah.
this is 1 hour just condensed into 1 minute.
And then it clones my face too and makes my mouth move. That's happening now too. So
Oh, and so you don't look away. Have you seen those? We are constantly just looking at the camera.
Yeah. It's a little creepy, that kind of stuff. Like, it's okay to just be off a little. And when we do a lot of this video, you and I will be side by side, and when your head's turned a little bit, it makes it seem a little bit more like a conversation anyway. So anyway.
Yeah, I think it saves editing not to cut all that stuff out. I think people can sense it. It just becomes across as distant. It's a bit like when someone uses stock photography, it's not really real. So there's something in you which kind of goes, why is he faking that? I know it's obvious, but I think, we're better off just being human.
Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks. We'll talk soon.
Yep. Cheers. Bye.